So I've had a ton of people reach out to me over the last week since I dropped the superlative episode on social media, which, by the way, number one, thank you. Number two, if you want to follow me or call me out on social media, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter. But regardless, many of folks were asking about my term for wild card, and they didn't really agree with who I picked as that roster. So real fast to clear the air, a wild card team does not mean you are Missouri 2.0, where you go on a run that nobody expects, you beat some teams, you find your way into the conversation as an SEC dark horse and make it to the college football playoff in the dozen dance. That's not a wild card team. For me, a wild card team is, oh, they did that on Saturday. Yep, I believe it. Oh, they did that on Saturday. Yep, I believe it. Oh, they did that on Saturday? Yep, I believe it. It's literally wild emotions, which is why South Carolina to me is the perfect wild card team of 2024. So let's go and discuss what's going on SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification. That way you don't miss a single episode, and subscribe because we're talking college football every single day throughout the 2024 season. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Make sure you're following us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. If you want to scream at me, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to keep up with the number one source for all things SEC, visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode's brought to you by RHOBACK. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall at RHOBACK.com by using the promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, much, much more. Fall camp is right around the corner. Game days ahead. Go visit RHOBACK.com and use the promo code SECU. So South Carolina is a wild card team, and many people decide to flood my inbox and go, they're not a wild card. They're not a wild card. Well, when you envision South Carolina through their first 3 years underneath Shane Beamer, they actually fit the definition to a T, because if you really didn't know what to expect. When he first arrived in Norman, Oklahoma, many people thought, okay, 4 wins is enough. Well, with a graduate assistant coach who had to fill in at quarterback, they got 6 wins. And then the next year, they got back-to-back wins over playoff-bound teams in Tennessee and Clemson. And by the way, they beat the living dog crap out of Tennessee, even with Hendon Hooker on the field, to get to 8 wins in the regular season. And they got a top 25 ranking in the final AP poll before the bowl games. So they were already a wild card team. And then last year, you bring back your starting quarterback and you feel really good. You have 2 potential NFL caliber wide receivers and you feel really good. And you have a defense that's questionable, but still you feel okay. Well, unfortunately, for a place like Columbia, South Carolina, it's not Tuscaloosa. It's not Baton Rouge. It's not Athens, Georgia. It's not even Austin, Texas. So the depth of your roster is going to take a hit in ways that it won't with the Crimson Tide, like it will with the Tigers, like it will with even at times the Rebels or the Longhorns. And so when you lose an offensive lineman or two, it's not a good look. They became a turnstile. You didn't have a good number 2 wide receiver once Juice Walls went down. You had to rely heavily on a first-round pick in Xavier Legette. And Spencer Rattler, who currently is balling out in New Orleans Saints training camp, was doing his best, but his best wasn't good enough, and you went 5-7. So again, wildcard team, kind of a roller coaster. But what if everything hits for South Carolina? Last season, all I continued to hear about from people in the Gamecock community was Lenore Sellers. We know we got Spencer. We know how good he is, but you look out here. Lenore Sellers is going to be special. Well, it's his time to shine. Now you got Rex Specs donning the new black jerseys, and he is about ready to go ham, in my opinion. And what if he does? Got to remember, this was a 4-star quarterback that had an entire year to learn the new offensive consistencies by Dow Loggins. And you got to stay healthy all last season. So what if he immediately comes on in and just balls out? We're talking so much about the future of the SEC, especially when it comes to Texas and Oklahoma joining and who are going to be the faces in 2025. And I've already made this clear. I think Nico Iamaleava and Jackson Arnold will certainly be center stage as the QBs to talk about. I think Lenore Sellers belongs in that category too. He's got arm strength. He's got the mobility. He's physical. The way he runs the football, it's not like a Maserati. You're getting more so a Ford F-150 that's ready to lower the hammer and go through the rocks to be able to climb to the mountaintop. That's what you got at your quarterback position. You also added in some names in the transfer portal, both on the offensive line and at wide receiver. How do you feel that some of these guys are going to step up? I mean, honestly, do you think Amari Huggins-Bruce can be a quality wide receiver? Do you think that you got something in DeValion Campbell from Nevada? Do you feel like that you added in some good running back depth with Raheem Sanders, with Oscar Attaway, with Juwan Howell? Do you feel like that you have an ideology when it comes to the offense for potentially using Robbie Ashford? How do you feel about this offense? How do you feel about the offensive line just in general? Can you get quality play from a 4-star in Josiah Thompson, who, by the way, I think is going to start sooner rather than later. He may start week 1 for all I know. But you also added in like 8 dudes on the offensive line from the transfer portal. How do you feel about them stepping up? How do you feel about Tor Kylie Simpson? How do you feel about Kamar Bell from Florida Atlantic? How do you feel about potentially adding in guys such as Gilbert Iman on the defensive side of the football? How do you feel about adding in Demetrius Knight? All these pieces that kind of play a role for your squad. And then, of course, you also have Debo Williams. You have Tonka Hemingway. You have Ian Moriarty at safety. You feel good about where this team is. So I look right now and I say, wild card. Because you want to why? Nobody knows what to expect. Except for when it comes to defense. I don't mean to be rude here, South Carolina fans, but a defense for Columbia this year, to me, when you return 9 starters, is a lot like me thinking about the summer in Houston, Texas, where I live. I'm not going to be surprised by anything. That's not an insult either. That's actually somewhat a compliment because I know what to expect from the Gamecocks moving forward, especially on that side of the ball. They showed a lot of promise when they moved to a 3-3 unit last year. When you return some of the guys that you have, especially an all SEC linebacker in Debo Williams, when you have what you got in DQ Smith, when you have what you got in Emory Floyd, when you got what you got in Jalen Kilgore, there's, again, some guys you feel confident in. And so now I look at South Carolina and I say, well, what are the expectations? And I know what Beamer said when he was at SEC Media Days. We know you're going to put us at 11th or, 12th or 14th in the polls. I had you at 11. And honestly, I felt just that was a little bit too low, but there was nowhere else to go at this point. It was like Mary and Joseph riding into Bethlehem. There was no room at the end. There was no room on my board to put you any higher. And I still believe you could be even higher. I wouldn't be shocked to see you get to 8 wins, 9 wins. That's what I think the expectations are. And then you look at the schedule. Nobody is telling you to just go ham to save your job, Shane Beamer. In fact, I would say many people aren't ready to give up on the Beamer Express just yet. And yours truly will go to war for Beamer Ball until further notice. I'm just going to make that abundantly clear. And maybe this is where my fandom for Shane Beamer comes in and I give him a little bit less flack. But I'm not asking you to beat Alabama. I'm not asking you to beat LSU. I'm not asking you to go toe-to-toe with Ole Miss. But Texas A&M, brand new head coach, the last time that you saw the Aggies waltz into Columbia, you got a win in the Bomb Trophy. You were able to go ahead and kind of show everybody, yeah, this is what you can expect from Gamecock football moving forward. I expect that. Vanderbilt, that's a win. I think Oklahoma, you're traveling on the road. People don't realize Oklahoma may be celebrating a little bit too long from a Red River redundance revival type of game where they end up coming out on top over Texas. And maybe that's a moment where you kind of humble Oklahoma, where you say, hey, welcome to the SEC. You can't have more than 24 hours to celebrate because when you do, this is what happens to you. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's against Kentucky in week 2. Maybe it's against Missouri. Maybe it's on the road. Week 14 in Clemson, South Carolina. You already did it once. Why not do it again? That's the way I feel about that's the way I feel about the Gamecocks currently going into 2024. Wild card team. Because you can tell me right now that this roster goes 4-8, and I can find 8 losses. I can easily find 8 losses. If the offensive line continues to be a turnstile, if Lenore Sellers is average to maybe slightly above average with no help at the wide receiver position at best, I could say that if the defense takes any step back, yeah, 8 losses is plausible. I also think 8 wins are plausible. I think that you could easily hold your own against not just Vanderbilt and not just Kentucky, but I think definitely LSU. I think Oklahoma. I think Texas A&M. I think Missouri, Wofford, Old Dominion, Akron, and Clemson. One of those maybe you lose. The rest you win. That's 8-4. 8-4 going into year 4 Beamer Ball era, plus what you bring in with some young up-and-comers. Victory, in my opinion. So when I say wild card team, I'm not saying Missouri 2.0, or I would have just said in the video, Missouri 2.0. That's what we can expect from this squad next season. What I'm saying is there will be a team from the SEC that every single Saturday, you say, this happened. Yep, totally believe it. This happened negatively. Yep, totally believe it. To me, that's South Carolina. You can believe that this is going to be a roster that overexceeds expectations, kind of like they have over the last couple of years with Shane Beamer, or a team that underachieves with the results that you expected, kind of like we saw last season. Again, go out the Joker card. Some people want to watch the world burn. That's not me. I just want to see Beamer ball get back to reality. Don't know if it happens this year, though. But let me know in the comments section down below. Is that a good representation for South Carolina football going into this season? Is that a reason to believe that South Carolina is turning the corner at the right time? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure you're following us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Again, scream at me in the comments section, at Mr. Cole Thompson. More than happy to listen to you on Twitter. And to keep up with the #1 source for all things SEC, visit SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Later.